In this video, we're going to go through many different examples of how you remove foam and where you'd find that on different airplanes. Let's go ahead and first start with our spine here that we have on formers that we just made in a previous video. You're going to see the remove foam symbol at the very end. And what I like to do is simply take a razor blade, preferably with the tip dulled, and I'm going to cut about 3/4 of the way through that on each side. A simple crack and then a peel is all you need to do
to remove your foam.
So here's a piece if you built any of our previous airplanes that you're going to see. It's our common A-fold box where we have our A-fold symbol, and you're going to see our remove foam symbol with arrows pointing to these two cavities here. Same process as before. I tend to like to take a razor blade with a dulled tip and just kind of guide it down through. Just make sure you don't go through the paper on the other side. And a very easy way to open this up is to simply fold this 180 degrees and use your fingernails and just gently pull it away in one nice clean piece. Anytime that maybe you see a little bit of residue that's left over, you can easily take a barbecue skewer or a razor blade and kind of just scrape that out. This is going to give us the ability to open up the cavity to make our A-fold or even our B-fold. This wing piece specifically shows a couple different remove foam symbols here. We can really attack this in any order we want. You're going to notice that the remove foam symbol right here on the edge is very simple. Just like we did on our previous step, we're going to cut down about 3/4 of the way through, and then we're going to pull that piece away. Here you see the remove foam symbol pointing to these two slots here. These slots are going to be where we have our spars sliding into the wings. The way we can remove this is we can use our dulled tip razor blade and trace along. And then we can come back with a barbecue skewer and we can carefully just go right to the bottom and pull it up. Let's go do that one more time. Again, I'm just going to lightly trace out, kind of crush this down in, get underneath it, and pull it out. Here's a really great example of where we'd see a remove foam symbol on the stabilizer. You're going to have a remove foam symbol, and it's going to be printed right over the piece that we want to remove. This is actually for the leading edge to have the paper fold over to give us a nice finished look, but also make it stronger too. And we can take our razor blade with a dulled tip, go down about 3/4 of the way through, and then what I like to do is slightly crack it. And with this more than a 90-degree angle, I'm just going to go ahead and lift up slightly, pulling away, letting it remove from the facing paper, but not putting any tension to remove the facing paper from the stabilizer itself. Let's go ahead and just do that one more time. Alright, so here's our C-fold that we commonly see in many of our builds. And you notice that this channel is twice as wide as our typical A-fold, B-fold channels. Fold at 180 degrees. On these wider ones, I'll just use my finger to kind of support this as I rotate it up. So here's another example of remove foam, similar to what we did with our wing spars, but this time it's on the tail. I also want to point out there's some extra detail here on this piece of planked foam that is attached to this. Anytime that you see extra foam attached to the fin that has some notes on there, you're going to notice it's planked to that piece. Don't remove that piece until it's time to do that step. So we're going to go ahead and do our remove foam section right here. Taking a little barbecue skewer down. And again, we're going to go ahead and keep this piece attached to this until we do the step that you see here. So just like I was talking about in our previous step, here's an example of removing foam, but this time it's printed on the outside box. That means once we remove the foam, we can go ahead and pop that out of its plank and then move on to the next step. So let's go ahead and do that again. So because this is the only step on the outside of the piece, I'm just going to go ahead and remove it. And again, the same process. So our last example of removing foam is going to come with a special symbol, and I want to call that out. Anytime that you see the little YouTube symbol along with an exclamation point, that means that there's some specific instructions for that specific step that you're only going to find in the playlist for that plane. So we pretty much covered every example of what you're going to see for removing foams on different parts of your airplanes. Let's go ahead and move on to our next symbol.